So, my dear children, today we will be doing the part 2 explanation of lesson number 3, fiber to fabric. You all open your textbooks on page number 28. We'll be starting at the topic of 2.3.2 silk. Now earlier we did about how the wool is made and how the animals, the hair of the animals that is removed from their skin have to undergo many processes, many steps, and when it becomes a finished product. You can see the different steps that I can show you in the textbook. That see there are step number 1 is shearing, then step number 2 is what is that, scoring, then sorting, then step number 4 is it's sorting out, and then after sorting what is done, it is again washed, and then step number 5 is after washing it is again dyed, and then it is rolled. So these are all the 6 steps that are involved in it. You can see this in the last line of on page number 27. So how the wool is made, that we all know. It is an animal fiber only. We get the wool from the hair of sheep, goat. Then there are many different kinds of the hair that we get from the goat. The ones which live on the hilly regions, their hair is very soft, and the pashmina shawls that are made are very famous Kashmiri shawls, which are made from the hair of the special type of goat called the Angora goats. Then yak hair is used in Tibet and Ladakh side. Then camel's hair is used in Rajasthan. So all different types of hairs of animals are used. Now today we will see how the silk is made. Silk is also an animal product only, or an animal fiber, from which many types of silk varieties are there, and many beautiful silk sarees have been made out of this fabric. Silk kurtas, silk dresses, many different things of silk are today made. But mainly in our country, the silk sarees are very popular and very famous, and there are many varieties of silk also. Now we'll read the lesson how the silk is obtained from the silkworm. Silk fibers are also animal fibers. Silkworms spin the silk fibers. The rearing of silkworms for obtaining silk is called sericulture. Now, what is the meaning of sericulture? The meaning of sericulture is the cultivation of silkworms. As we grow in the farm, same way the silkworms are also cultivated to get the silk, and these silkworms spins the silk fibers. And how do they spin the silk fibers, that we will study later on. But main, it is the sericulture. It is the term that is used to cultivate the silkworms. Life history of silk moth. The female silk moth lays The female silk moth lays eggs from which the larvae hatch larvae, which are called as the caterpillars or the silkworms. They grow in size, and when the caterpillar is ready, enter the next stage of its life history, that is called as the pupa. Now, from where the journey of the silk moth starts is that the female silk moth lays the eggs, and then it hatches into the larva. The first stage of the silk moth that grows in the egg is the larva, which is also called as the caterpillar or the silkworms. They are also called as the caterpillar, or they are called as the silkworms. When they grow and the caterpillar is ready, they grow in size, they grow big, and then they enter into the second stage of their history of their life, that is called as the pupa. So first stage is your the larva, and the second stage is the pupa. And larva is also called larvae are also called as the caterpillars or the silkworms also. After, when they grow, they become pupa. Its first weaves a net to hold itself. Then it swings its head from side to side in the form of figure of 8. Now, when it develops into the pupa, the caterpillar or the silkworm develops into the pupa, it first weaves a net in the form of 8, so that it can hold itself, so that it can. And how does it make the net? It makes a net by swinging its head from side to side, and while it swings its head from side to side, a figure of 8 develops, and that net holds the pupa. During the movement of the head, the caterpillar secretes fiber made of protein which hardens on exposure to air and becomes silk fiber. Now, how does it become the silk fiber? It is just very interesting. You can see then when the caterpillar is moving, is during the movement of its head, that means when the caterpillar is moving its head from side to side to form a net so that it can hold itself, then at that time it secretes a certain it secretes the fiber made of protein. That means a fiber is secreted by the caterpillar during the movement of its head, and that fiber, when it comes in the exposure or when it is exposed to the sun, it hardens, and when it is exposed to the sun, it hardens and becomes the silk fiber. So exposure to the air makes it hard, and then it becomes the silk fiber. That is a secretion of the protein by the pupa to hold itself to form the net, and that net is itself is the silk fiber. Soon the caterpillar completely covers itself by the silk fiber and turns into pupa. So slowly what happens when the caterpillar covers itself with that net only, slowly it makes such a figure of 8 in such a way that it covers itself completely with that net. This covering is called as the cocoon. Now what is that cover called? That cover is called as the cocoon. The further development of pupa into moth continues inside the cocoon. So within that cocoon or the cover that is made by the caterpillar itself, the development of the pupa takes inside that cocoon only. Now you should make it, I will once again explain to make it more clear that when the that net he secretes the protein to make the net, and which hardens and becomes the silk fiber, and then that caterpillar itself completely covers with that silk fiber only, with that net only, and then it turns into pupa. After covering that silk fiber net, or the net that he is preparing, or the silk fiber that is preparing by the movement of his head, it turns into pupa, and that cover is known as that the silk cover that he makes is known as the cocoon, and the further development of pupa takes place in that cocoon only. Silk fibers are used for weaving silk cloth. Can you imagine the soft silk yarn, as it is as strong comparable to the thread of a steel? Now we might not imagine also the thin thread of silk is so strong we can compare it with the thread of a steel. That much strong the silk thread is. The natural silk thread is as strong as a thread of the steel. मतलब कि सिल्क का धागा इतना मजबूत होता है कि अगर हम स्टील के एक धागे को ले और सिल्क के एक धागे को ले तो दोनों की मजबूती को कंपेयर इजीली कर सकते हैं, उतना जो है मजबूत होता है. The silk yarn thread is obtained from the cocoon of the silk moth. There's a variety of silk moth which looks very different from one another, and the silk yarn that yield are different in texture, coarse, smooth, shiny, etc. Now, how do we obtain the silk yarn? The silk yarn or the thread is obtained from the cocoon of the silk moth. Now, this cocoon itself, that covering itself is the silk yarn. So, we get the silk yarn from the cocoon of the silk moth. Now, there are a variety of silk moths, and so when the different varieties of silk moths are there, so the silk that is obtained is also of the different variety. Like some is coarse, means which is rough, some is smooth, and some of the silk obtained is shiny. Thus, tussar silk, moga silk, kosa silk, etc. are obtained from the cocoons spun by different types of moth. So you can see these are different varieties of silk. Tussar silk, moga silk, kosa silk, etc. are the varieties of the silk. So these are obtained from the different types of cocoons only. The variety of the cocoon that gives these types of silks are also different. Thus, the most common silk moth is the mulberry silk moth. Now, it is mulberry. It's जिसको कि हम हिंदी में शहतूत बोलते हैं. शहतूत के पेड़ पे जो होते हैं सिल्क मोथ ज़्यादातर ग्रो करते हैं. उनका फेवरेट फूड होता है वो मलबरी होता है. The silk fiber from the cocoon of this moth is soft. जो मलबरी के जो ट्री के ऊपर ग्रो करते हैं, जो सर्वाइव करते हैं, जो सिल्क वर्म्स, उनमें से जो सिल्क का फैब्रिक मिलता है, दैट इज वेरी सॉफ्ट एंड इट इज कॉमनली फाउंड सिल्क, lustrous and elastic, and can be dyed into beautiful colors. With the variety that of the silk that is obtained, it is very lustrous, means it is shiny, soft, and it's like elasticity is there in it, and it can be dyed in different colors. Before I explain the later part of this mulberry silkworm and how it grows, I'll just show you the whole life cycle of this. This is your male silk moth, then this is your female. Now this female lays eggs. You can see this eggs on the mulberry. This is your mulberry leaf on which you can see those small rounds which are the eggs of the silk moth. Now this grows into the silkworm or the caterpillar. From next this stage is goes into the cocoon, the pupa that goes into the cocoon, and cocoon with the developing moth, and in this you can see the moth developing. So this is the entire life history of the silkworm. Now we move on to the silk fiber obtained from the cocoon of this moth is soft, lustrous and elastic and can be dyed into beautiful colors. The silk obtained from the mulberry silk moth, that means the silkworm which survives or lives on the mulberry tree. Now, sericulture or the culture of the silkworms is very old occupation in India. India produces plenty of silk on a commercial scale. That means on a large scale, the production of silk is done in India. Sericulture, the culture of silkworms, it is not a new culture or the new occupation in India. For very olden years or for very many ages, this occupation has been done in India. And India produces a plenty of silk on the commercial basis. On the commercial basis means doing business on the large scale. India is producing so much of silk that it can do the business on a large scale. Now next is your activity 3.5. Now what is the activity that we'll see? Collect pieces of silk cloth of various types and paste them on your scrapbook. You can find them in a tailor's shop. So this is a small activity. If you wish, you can do it also easily. अगर आपके घर में अगर ऐसे कुछ सिल्क के पीसेस पड़े हुए हैं छोटे छोटे अलग अलग वेराइटी के, तो आप उनको लीजिए और उसको एक जो है अपने प्रोजेक्ट बुक में उसको पेस्ट कीजिए, और आपको टेलर के दुकान से भी इजीली ये टाइप के जो है सिल्क के पीसेस अलग अलग मिल सकते हैं. डिफरेंट वेराइटीज ऑफ सिल्क यू कैन get. But nowadays another silk is, this is called as the pure silk. This animal silk that we get is the pure silk, but nowadays another type, that is artificial silk or the man-made silk, is also available. Among the heap of the waste of the cut pieces that the tailor have. Now take the help of your mother, aunt or teacher and identify the types of silk such as the mulberry silk. Now as we have talked about earlier a lot, that there are many different varieties of silk from the different type of cocoons that make these silks. So mulberry silk, tussar silk, then earth silk, moga silk, etc. Compare the texture of these silk with that of the artificial silk pieces which contain synthetic fiber. So as I already told you that artificial silk is also there, which is actually nothing but the synthetic fiber that the man has developed, or the man-made fiber is there, but it is a little bit more lustrous or more shiny material than the silk obtained from the silkworms. Try and collect the pictures of different moths whose caterpillars provide these various types of silk. So I think this is not possible to do because we cannot collect the moth easily, as it is only the cultivation is done of the moth, so we cannot find these moth. But yes, we can do that. We can, if possible, we can find the different types of silk that is available with us. Next is the activity 3.6. Now, as I can see this tussar silk, moga silk in India, each region has its variety of silk. As in South India, we have 3 or 4 different varieties of silk. Mainly the very famous Kanchipuram silk, that saris are there. Then patolas are there. These are all different varieties of silk that are in south of India. Many varieties of silk are there. Then in Madhya Pradesh, you get one variety of silk. In Calcutta or West Bengal, you get another variety of silk. In Assam, you will get a nice variety of silk. So each and every state has its own variety of silk in India. Now next activity is 3.6. Take an artificial synthetic silk thread and a pure silk thread. Burn these threads carefully. Did you notice any difference in the smell while burning? Yes, you will definitely feel the difference in the smell when you take a pure silk thread. Pure silk thread means the thread that is obtained from the animal. Silkworms में से जो thread निकलता है, जो मिलता है, that is the pure silk है. और जो synthetic वाला होता है, which is more shiny, more slippery type, that is the artificial silk. And when you are going to take thread each silk and you burn it, then definitely you will feel the difference in the smell. Now burn a woolen fiber carefully. Did it smell like burning of artificial silk or that of the pure silk? Can you explain why? Now when you will burn this, you will feel the difference in the, and when you will burn the wool also, you will feel the smell. Now what are these smells and why there's a difference in the smell? Because see, the pure silk and the woolen fibers, they are animal fibers. Basically they are animal fibers. So when they will burn, they will have a different smell, and when this artificial silk is burnt, then it will have another smell because it is made out of synthetic material. To remember when the cocoon stage is reached in the life history of silk moth, try the following activities. Now next is your activity 3.7. Activity 3.7 also involves to paste the different pictures of the life history of the silk moth. Now we'll read this. In India, women are significantly involved in the various kind of industries related to the silk production. These are rearing of silkworms, reeling of silk from cocoons, and processing the raw silk into fabrics. Now all these work of silk production, the basic work of the silk production, like rearing of silkworms, then reeling of the silk from the silkworms, and then producing raw silk, all these things are done by women in many parts of our country, and then that silk is converted into the fabric. By their enterprise, they contribute to the nation's economy. China leads the world in the silk production. India also ranks, sharing the leading silk producing countries. India also ranks among the leading silk producing countries in the world. So China is the first to have the maximum silk production in the world, and India among the few silk producing countries, India also comes in that. On page number 30 is from cocoon to silk. For obtaining silk, moths are reared and their cocoons are collected to get the silk thread. Now how does the rearing of the silkworms are done, that we will study now. This is now the important part of the lesson of how the silk is made, how the silk moth lays eggs, and how the silkworms are developed. Rearing silkworms. This is the whole process of rearing of silkworms to getting the silk fiber. A female silk moth lays hundreds of eggs at a time. The eggs are stored carefully on the strip of cloth or paper and sold to the silkworm farmers. Now what happens is the silk moth lays hundreds of, you can see this first figure where the female silk moth is laying hundreds of eggs together. Then these eggs are collected and these eggs are stored carefully in a strip of paper or a cloth, and then it is sold to the persons or the farmers who rears the silk or who is doing the work of sericulture or the farming of the silkworms. The farmers keep eggs under the hygienic conditions and under suitable conditions of temperature and humidity. Now here the temperature and humidity is very important for the silkworm to for the eggs to go into the next stage of caterpillar. So when the farmers take these eggs, they keep it under hygienic conditions, means the clean conditions they keep, so that the eggs don't die, they survive and they convert it into caterpillar. If unhygienic conditions are there, then their eggs will not hatch into the larva. So for eggs to hatch into the larva, the conditions has to be, the area has to be hygienic, and they should get the suitable temperature and humidity. मतलब temperature और जो ह्यूमिडिटी होती है वो एक लेवल में ही होनी चाहिए. अगर ज़्यादा होगी तो भी नहीं चलेगा और कम होगी तो भी नहीं चलेगा. सो इट शुड गेट द सूटेबल एनवायरनमेंट टू हैच इनटू लार्वा. द एग्स आर वार्म्ड टू अ सूटेबल टेम्परेचर फॉर द लार्वा टू डेवलप. मतलब कि एग्स को क्या है, एक टेम्परेचर जब तक नहीं मिलेगा, एक सूटेबल टेम्परेचर, तब तक वो हैच नहीं करेंगे. मीन्स द लार्वा विल नॉट कम आउट ऑफ द एग्स फ्रॉम द एग्स. दस this is done when the mulberry trees bears a fresh crops of leaves. Now what is the time when the larva is hatched from the eggs? It is a time when the mulberry trees bear the fresh crops of leaves. That means when they shed their leaves, mulberry trees shed their leaves, and after the shedding, the new leaves when come out on the trees, that time only the larva hatches out from the eggs. You can see this is the mulberry tree. This is a big mulberry tree. This is a leaf of a mulberry tree, and on this leaf of the mulberry trees are the larvas on which they survive. The larvae called the caterpillars or the silkworm eat day and night and increase enormously in size. So day and night continuously they feed on the leaves of the mulberry tree and they grow enormously, means very big in size, because day and night they keep on eating and they develop very fast in size. So the larva, which is also called as the caterpillar or the silkworms, so they grow big in size. You can see this is the third stage, larva or the caterpillar silkworm feeding on the mulberry leaf. You can see these larvas or the caterpillars on which they, on the leaves that they are feeding. This is the mulberry tree. And what is the next stage? This is the last stage, that is the cocoons. The larvae are kept in the clean bamboo trays along with the freshly chopped mulberry leaves. After 20 to 30 days, the caterpillars stop eating and move to a tiny chamber of bamboo in a tray to spin cocoon. So these larvae are again taken, are kept in the bamboo trays, means लकड़ी के जो tray होती हैं उसमें इनको larva को रखा जाता है, caterpillars को रखा जाता है, and the tray is completely filled with the freshly chopped, means जो छोटे छोटे जो fresh leaves that have come out of the mulberry leaves, they're taken and they're chopped into pieces and the tray is filled with those pieces so that the larva can continuously eat those leaves. And after 20 to 30 days, what happens is those caterpillar moves to the stop eating. Once they are grown to a certain level, then they stop eating and then they move to a tiny chambers of the bamboo. Means वो जो bamboo tray के छोटे छोटे जहाँ जगह होती है उनको खाली वहाँ पे वो चले जाते हैं to spin the cocoons. Small trays or twigs may be provided in the trays to which cocoons get attached. So because it is a bamboo, तो छोटी छोटी वहाँ पर जो होती हैं twigs जैसा होता ही है उनके अंदर, ये छोटे छोटे racks जैसा बनाया जाता है लकड़ी से ही, जिसके वजह से वो cocoons जो है उसमें attach हो जाते हैं. The caterpillar or silkworm spins the cocoon inside which develops the silkworm. फिर slowly the caterpillar and the cocoon continuously with the movement of the head they build the net inside this, जिसको कि cocoon बनाता है और उसके अंदर जो है silk moth starts developing. Now next is the processing of silk. How does the silk is processed? A pile of cocoons is used for obtaining silk fibers. Now these cocoons are collected after the cocoon is made, or that the caterpillar spins the cocoon around itself for the net of the silk fiber with the, that is the protein of which is secreted by the caterpillar. So that is made. Then these piles of cocoons are collected for obtaining the silk. The cocoons are kept under sun or the boiled or exposed to steam. Now to dry them, because without the exposure of the air and heat they will not become hard. So to make that secreted protein hard, what happens is they are kept in the boiled water, or they are boiled, or they are exposed to the steam, or they are kept in the sun, so that the secreted fiber becomes hard. The silk fiber separates out. The process of taking out the threads from the cocoon for the use of silk is called as the reeling of silk. Now when this process is done, the silk fiber is separated from the cocoon, and this process of separating the silk fiber from the cocoon is called as the reeling of the silk. Reeling is done in a special machine which unwinds the threads of the silk from the cocoons. Now with the reeling is done, when the separation of thread from the cocoon is done, it is done on the special types of machines in which the threads of the silk are separated from the cocoons. Silk fibers are then spun into silk thread which are woven into silk cloth by the weavers. Then those silk that is taken out from the cocoons by the help of the machine is then spun into a silk threads, and they are made into silk thread, then they are dyed, and then it is given to the weavers to weave the cloth. So this is the whole history of how the silk is made. Basically it is the cocoons that from which we get the silk moth, from which we get the silk. So it's not an easy process of rearing the of doing the sericulture and producing the silk. That is why the silk is very costly, and nowadays it has become more costly because the trees are not available. It is certain parts only the mulberry trees are available. So it's very difficult to do the sericulture or the farming of the silk moth. I hope you all have understood the process of forming of silk fabric and how the silk fabric is then woven into the silk by the weavers. So with this we come to the end of this lesson number 3. Now you all have written the hard words also, and the exercise also you have done in the textbook. Now after your exams, I will give you the work in the science to do the from the workbook, MCQs, blanks and all that we will do on the next turn. Till then, bye and take care. And please, if you don't understand anything, you are always open to ask any question you like. So bye bye, take care, and please study for your PAT exam. Bye.